The following disclaimer will be read by Diana and then by Steve for the hearing impaired. Les podcasts, c'est bon?
Les podcasts, c'est bon?
Content des spoilers?
Content de la spoilers?
Et tout langage pour adopter.
Et tout du langage pour adopter?
Et de nombre au revoir.
Et de nombre au revoir?
Certains en peu plus.
Certains on peut plus?
Tout qu'est prévu.
Tout que prévu. Merci.
This is a message from the Office of Emergency Preparedness. Due to the recent crisis, we ask that you remain in your homes. Do not attempt to communicate or interact with the creatures, even if they are people you know.
Lock your doors. Bar your windows. The dead are coming. It's time for Aim for the Head, an all Walking Dead universe podcast. And now, here are your hosts, Diana and Steve.
Hi, and welcome back to Aim for the Head podcast. I'm Diana.
Mila Steve. Hello.
Again, Mila Steve.
Bonjour.
Sure, everybody. And this week we'll be discussing the season 2 finale of Daryl, Dixon. Title of the episode is Au revoir, l'enfant, which of course means goodbye, children. And I just want to apologize to everyone with ears who had to listen to us do French. I mean, come on.
Whatever do you mean?
I mean, we had so much fun with it in season 1. We might as well just like plow right through it.
Well,
when we're doing
I think actually too, you know, if you watch this episode, I think this might be bon voyage for la France. So
Thank God, because the word on the street is they're gonna at some point make it to Spain, and I'm much better with Spanish.
Sí, mucho excelente.
Sí. Okay, bueno.
Mi el Stevo.
Oh, geez, great. I have to come up with a new. Mi el Stevo.
I think so next season it's going to be pip pip cheerio, top of the morning.
At least for a little bit, yeah, I believe so. So before we get into details for the episode, let's talk quick thoughts. I went first last time, so Steve, tell the listening audience your just sort of overall thoughts. What did you think of the season finale?
It was okay. It wasn't great. I think there was some great moments in there, but overall, right. I think it was just a very good episode of the show. We were talking about this before we started. You know, my initial reaction was it really felt like it was 2 mini episodes pushed together. Because, you know, I mean, the whole Laurent and Ash part of the story, they wrapped up in the first like 28 minutes, right? And you know, the kid, the plane took off and left, and I think like a lot of us were like, oh, wow, that was quick. And then, you know, you're looking at the clock and you're like, wow, I mean, it's like literally they're like, you know, half into it. It's like, what are they going to do? You know, and then the second part, and it has a completely different, you know, feel to it. And, you know, I mean, it's a different tone and everything. You know, the first part, the Ash part, the Laurent part, much more action oriented, right? Lots of, you know, gunfights and stuff like that. And it's very, you know, kind of straightforward. And then the second part, it's much more suspenseful. You know, they're in the tunnel, right? And it's dark and foreboding, and there's all the bat crap everywhere. And then they, you know, come upon all the corpses and all. I mean, much different tone and feel than the first part. So, but overall, like I said, I enjoyed it. I think clearly it's tying up all the French loose ends possible, and they are, you know, moving the show forward. They're not just going to have season 3 be another season in France. They're stretching out. They're going to at least start in England. You know, whether Spain is going to, you know, fill in for England next season, or if they're only in England for a short time, we'll have to see. But like I said, overall, I thought, again, good episode, some great moments. What did you think?
I agree. There were some moments that were good. There were some really snappy dialogue here and there. And I appreciate that. I would say overall, this is the first episode, I think, of the series, really. I think there might have been one last season, but overall, I would say I was more disappointed than I was entertained. This is the first one. And I think a lot of that was, I was trying to sort of put it into words when we were talking before we started recording. And I think for me, a lot of it was expectations based. When we were, I think I speak for both of us, we were not expecting to enjoy season 1 as much as we did. I had low expectations. Daryl's not my favorite character. A whole season, and we were still kind of smarting from the whole, Dead City and the Daryl shows were both announced before the main series was done, so the plot armor was official. And so I had a lot of and Daryl wasn't my favorite, so I went into this with a lot of negative emotions. And season 1 really delivered in a lot of ways. And I think I went into season 2 with really high expectations. And there were, I think, more episodes this season that I found disappointing than last season. So just an overall, and there were lots of episodes. I think, if you go back and look at my thoughts on all of them, there were more things I was disappointed in, but I overall enjoyed the episodes. The percentage of enjoyment was higher. And just for this one, there were just too many large chunks that were just things they didn't connect with me, that I felt there were a couple of tropey things that I was like, well, of course. There were a couple of, real big leaps in logic and, suspending your disbelief.
A lot of that.
A lot of that. I did, and when we get to individual points, we'll get to a lot of the stuff that I did like, some of the things I had issues with. Overall, I'm actually cautiously optimistic and cautiously looking forward to a season 3. I'm glad that they knew about the season 3 before this season ended. I would have hated for it to have ended on a question mark. We obviously know, like you were saying, they've wrapped up all of the sort of French loose ends, and there'll be a new chapter for the next season. There's some spoilers online. There's some, and they did show in the scenes. They already have some stuff because they're filming right now. So we know that, they're obviously, because of the channel, it's England, but it looks like at some point they make it to Spain for some reason, which we don't know yet what that is. And And so I like that they're sort of heading in a direction. I would hate for this have at least, like I said, ended on a question mark. So I do enjoy that. And I am looking forward to a 3rd season because I enjoy more of this series normally. This was a blip to me to have been disappointed in the episode. And I know that there's lots of people that weren't. They enjoyed it. They thought there was a lot of action, a lot of other stuff. So I think I'm sort of like the anomaly. I don't know. And like I said, I think a lot of it comes down to expectations, and those are just my own things in my head. So I'm not sure that, not a lot that they could do about that and deal with, the weirdness in my head.
But what you're saying is that overall you enjoyed it. It just wasn't everything you wanted.
I would say overall I was disappointed more than I enjoyed it. But there were definite things that I liked. I have a lot of things on my list that I thought were really great. I just feel like previous episodes where there were moments that disappointed me, they were smaller and less, important to the plot, etc. But there were some chunks and there was some sloppiness and some clunkiness, at least to me. That's how it felt. So I'd say overall I was disappointed, but I'm still hopeful for season 3. Let's put it that way.
Okay. So, well, I would just point out that, that you can't always get what you want.
That's true. But if you try.
Sometimes you find.
Yeah. You get what you need.
You get what you need. So there we go.
And that's the, modern day philosopher. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So let's launch this puppy. What do you say?
Yeah. Shall we? Yeah.
All right.
So first off, we're like, what's next?
I know. This is the first time we've done this show.
I know. Don't mind us, folks. We're not even well rehearsed. You know what it is? We shot our wad with doing all that French. That's the problem.
I know. It is.
Yeah. I'm exhausted.
I'm just giddy because it's like I never get to do stuff in the opener mode, so I have to do a lot of stuff. So I'm just like, this is so exciting.
I know. Now you're all pumped up, and I'm tired. I'm taking a nap. So before we get into our top moments, we're gonna first remind everybody what happened in episode 6. So we'll do that by going through the episode description, which is your job.
All right. Well, this week's episode is being brought to you by.
Hey shippers, are you tired of never seeing your favorite couple be a couple? Are you still waiting for the greatest ZA romance to officially start? I hate to burst your bubble, but it'll never happen on the show, but that doesn't mean you can't experience it anyway, thanks to Quasi Carol Kitchen's newest product, Chunnel Cakes. Chunnel Cakes are a tasty psychoactive snack cake that can let you see all of the Daryl and Carol romance you've ever wanted. How, you ask? Well, Chunnel Cakes are made with a special secret ingredient. We can't tell you what it is, but here's a hint. It rhymes with mono. To get those two together, simply enjoy a delicious Chunnel Cake and then start watching an episode. In no time, you'll be seeing Carol kissing Daryl. I mean, it's really somebody else, but it'll look like Daryl because by that point, you'll be tripping balls. Operators are standing by, so order your supply of Chunnel Cakes today. The sooner you start eating them, the sooner the romance can begin. Chunnel Cakes. Order now. Warning, possible side effects include hallucinations, paranoia, and a strong desire to speak in a Scottish accent.
Well, I know. I'm going to be ordering some Chunnel Cakes right away.
I mean, maybe if I eat a Chunnel Cake, I'll have enjoyed the episode more. Or is it too soon? Is it rude to say that or too soon to say that?
No, not at all. That's the whole point of Chunnel Cakes. Lets you imagine the stuff you want now.
Do I really want a cake that's made out of bat poop?
Hey, it's a secret ingredient. You don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's like Colonel Sanders, whatever, biscuits or whatever you want to call it.
They just tell you what it rhymes with. It could be anything.
Right.
But I think it would certainly help. I mean, just imagine how much better fear would be if you were eating Chunnel Cakes.
Oh my God. Yeah. It would have won Emmys if you had Chunnel Cakes.
It would go down in the greatest television show ever. All right. Well, anyway, that finishes up our sponsors for the Daryl Dixon season. So, moving on, our writers and directors, and I think we mentioned this several times that there's lots of repeats, and this. I think I said this last week, and that is the writers for last week's episode are also the writers for this week's episode, and the director for this episode was also the director of last week's episode. So it's just to remind everybody, it was Jason Richmond and David Zabel were our writers, and they wrote the teleplay. So they wrote the actual script that we watched the actors perform, and again, they are both executive producers on the show. And they wrote 3 episodes in season 1. They wrote 3 episodes in season 2, And the only difference here is that the actual story that we saw, was written by another person, a gal who was written for this show, and her name is Laura Snow. And she actually wrote the season finale for season 1. She wrote Coming Home, so the season finale from last year, and then this year she didn't actually write the script. She just kind of wrote the basic story that then those two guys wrote the script based on. So that are your those are your writers, and then again our director is Daniel Percival, and again he's directed 6 of the 12 episodes we've seen so far. So I'm not great at math, but I believe that is almost half. Okay.
Hey,
so yeah,
you're just as good at math as any other person.
That's right.
I don't know what that means.
I don't know. I failed English too. He directed 4 episodes in the season number 1, including episode 1 and episode 2, and then episode 5 and episode 6. And then he directed Moulin Rouge this season, which was 2.2. And then, or actually, I take that back. He's directed 7 episodes, because he directed 4 in season 1 and 3 in season 2. He directed Moulin Rouge, and then last week's episode, Volar c'est pouvoir, and then this one. And he is already on the book scheduled to direct, or has directed, episode 2 of next season. So, and again, I believe he is an executive producer, or he is involved in the show as well. So, again, they do this a lot on the spinoffs, that the spinoffs tend to be written and helmed by either veteran Walking Dead people or people that are, working on the show as executive producers. So that is your writers and your director.
Well, you're correct. You are not good at math, so that's
no.
At least that's honesty right there.
You can't always add what you want.
That's true, but if you try, you can divide what you need. So speaking of the Rolling Stones, yeah, they don't often license their music for stuff.
They do not. You and I, we have a Goodman story involving the Rolling Stones.
We do. But how do you feel about this? First of all, I'm glad that he played it. I'm glad that he played the guitar, because I was like, really, a guitar that's it looks like it's in decent shape, but it's completely out of tune. So that's what I was happy for. That was very thank you for not having that be a perfectly tuned guitar, because I might have to throw my TV. So that was very, very realistic. And he's playing, and he knows the songs, and I'm like, okay. I mean, I guess when you got nothing else to do, and I mean, he was taught by.
He mentions that he was taught by someone that loves 70s rock, and and he doesn't mention the Stones, but he mentions Led Zeppelin and some other groups or singers from the 70s.
Yes.
But the Stones, I mean, the song he's singing is actually from the 60s, but the Stones clearly, I mean, they're still touring today, so they were obviously around and doing and making music at that point. So it was fine. I always wonder, why don't we see more people doing stuff like that in the Poxyclips? I mean, why wouldn't you? I mean, why is it that none of these people have a T-shirt with a logo on it anymore ever? I mean, it's because they don't want to. It's not because people wouldn't be wearing stuff like that. It's because the television show doesn't want to pay to have whatever it is in there, and that's why they, for them to get the Rolling Stones. I mean, first of all, like you said, they do not license out the rights to their music very often, and I'm sure it is super pricey for TV. So clearly a big chunk of the budget went to get that song.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
And then they made a point in the they made a point in the featurette. They talked to the kid who plays Laurent, and he mentioned that the guitar was horribly out of tune, and then he kind of stops and he goes, "But I guess that would make sense because Daryl finds it somewhere, like in a car or something, and it's just been sitting there for 12, 13 years." So he's like, "Of course it would be." So the reason why he said it was out of tune is that it was very hard to play, because it was not tuned at all, and they said, "We don't care, just do the best you can," so.
Yeah. It's more realistic for it to be out of tune and for him to perhaps struggle with it too.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
Sure, he may have learned a little bit back at the convent, but it's been a bit. He's out of practice. And he has to go off of straight memory of that. So it read very it felt very honest, like a very honest moment. I'm on the fence about Daryl joining in, but it got him so emotional though too. And you made a point of putting that there. I mean, there's no crying in the apocalypse, Daryl.
Yeah, I was definitely channeling my inner League of Their Own there. Where I'm like, "Are you crying? Are you crying?" I'm like, when Rick Grimes had to, shoot a little girl zombie holding a fake rabbit, did he cry? No. You know why? Because there's no crying in the apocalypse. I mean, I kept waiting for that whole kind of a speech to come out there. But I guess it's supposed to show that, Daryl isn't just a big, grunting, bad smelling lug. He actually's got feelings. And so they wanted to show that up. So, and actually have them on display. So good for you, Norman Reedus.
Yeah, he did good. I'm curious. So we get this cute little scene with him and Laurent, which was, nice. And then we move away from that, and there's a scene where they are they just scouting for supplies? Is that why they went there? Because Cadron gave he said it was a place they used or a hospital they knew of. And is that what they were doing, was just looking for supplies?
No, they weren't. Because they were, well, I guess you could say they were totally supplies later, but no. No, they had split off from Daryl and Carol, and they were trying to, get back to either the rooftop settlement or some other group. So it was Cadron and Falou, and then these two gals that were part of that rooftop group. And and so they're on the road, and they kind of stop in front of this building that they say, oh yeah, they before the fall they turned this into a hospital, and for a while it was a mental hospital, and then they have to stop because one of the horses is dehydrated and they need to let it rest and get some water and stuff. And then Cadron's like, well, we should go in and look. There might be still some supplies there we could use. And so
that was my question. I couldn't remember why they went in. I couldn't remember why they went in initially. I wasn't sure if they were looking for something specific or if they were just happened upon it and it was like, let's just sweep it for supplies. I couldn't remember.
It was just like, hey, we got to wait here for a little while to let the horses kind of rest and recuperate. So why not put the time to good use? We can, we can go in there. So and then remember the girls want to go in with them, and they're like, no, it might be dangerous. You guys stay out here. It's like,
no, okay. It's nice to know misogyny is still alive and well.
Oh God, yeah.
But my only reaction of the whole thing was I was curious if Sabine and the Guerrières were lying in waiting for them, or did they pull off the quietest attack known to man? Because they literally just step out the door and holy shit, they're there. They literally took Falou down.
No. Yeah, they did. Right.
You know what I mean? He's down when Cadron steps out, Falou's already on the ground and on his knees, and he didn't make a sound.
And they make him call him out too.
Yeah.
Because Falu's like, hey, I found something. And so then Kadran kind of, stuffs some bandages in his bag or whatever he's looking at and walks out there. And there they are. And he's down on his knees and they've got the guns. And I kind of took it that they came upon them, and it was the quietest, stealthiest attack of all time because they got the two women. They bypassed the women because Aquila is her name. She ends up shooting several of those guys with the bow and arrow and kind of saves them. So they the women saw them coming and hid, and so then Jacinta or Sabine and her soldiers went inside the building. I don't know. I mean, they didn't show us that part, but somehow they took Falu unaware. So I don't know. It was a very convenient thing. It was the first moment in this where I was like, well, that was really convenient that, they just happened to show up there, that they happened to take them without making a sound. So there's no alarm raised at all. And then, of course, the woman, kind of pulls their bacon out of the fire there, but, by shooting them and sort of, giving them their opportunity to turn the tables. So,
yeah. I like how in the end, though, when Aquila saved them by shooting the arrows, she literally was just like, men.
Oh, yeah.
Just because, although to be fair, if they were inside, they probably would have been taken hostage too. And by him leaving them behind, they were able to sort of come to the rescue. I'm not sure that would have been the same case if they were inside with Kadran and Falu. So
if you have to think, if they were all in there, they all would have been taken and totally different story. So I although them making the girls stay outside, it was not like, hey, we want you guys to hang back in case we get into trouble. That was not their thinking at all. It was just like, you know what, you girls, you just stay out here with the horsey and we'll go do the man stuff.
Yeah, you it's okay. We don't want you to mess your hair up. It's fine.
That's right. You start thinking about what you're going to make us for dinner.
Yeah. So we get let's see. I'm trying to think of what scene comes up next after that.
So what happens is they kill everyone, although Sabine gets away. She runs away, but and that's where Kadran. First of all, he gets his gun back from season 1, which is that musket with that weird knife thing that swings out like a switchblade. And again, if you watch the episode, they show him use that in the previously on Daryl Dixon. And it's a weird scene. It's like, why would, and I'm watching, I'm like, why would they show that scene, in a previously? Because that was clearly from last season. And then I'm like, oh, okay, because when the guy pulls the gun on him, he's like, nice gun, so he recognizes it, but he also gets a grenade. And, he kind of throws it like a baseball and catches it, like he tosses it and catches it and puts it in his pocket. And I made the note, and I'm like, well, that's going to come back into play.
It's Chekhov's grenade.
It's Chekhov's grenade. Yeah, absolutely. But anyway, after they do that and they kind of, take what they can from these dead soldiers they just wasted, they're like, Falu's like, oh my God, we have to warn Dixon that they're looking for them. And then everyone's like, well, we don't know where they are though, right? And remember, that's what Sabine is like, where's Dixon? And they're like, we don't know. They didn't tell us. We didn't ask. We don't know. And then she's like, well, I think you do. And it's like, obviously, we're going to shoot Falu in the face here and, force Kadran to talk. That's when they get rescued. And so now Falu's like, we got to go warn him. Where is he? We don't know where he is. And that's when Kadran's like, actually, I do. And so then they're now heading to the airfield or the racetrack to warn them. And then it cuts to Anna, and she is in her limo with her I don't know what you call it, her secretary, her girlfriend, her secretary girlfriend, I don't know, whoever she was.
Second in command or something. I got a real sort of lady in waiting, second in command kind of feel from her.
I almost got like it's like her admin, you know, like this is the gal that like makes sure like she makes her appointments and does all the stuff she needs to do. I don't know.
Yes.
But anyway, so they're driving, and then now we see Jacinta and more of these soldier guerriere guys, and they, you know, kind of surround the limo and force them to get out. And she's asking the same questions. Where's the boy? Where's Dixon?
Right. Yeah, it is a great scene because Anna, like, in that moment where she's in the car with her, you know, secretary / second in command / friend, we're not sure.
Right.
She's very like, they've got a closeness to them about, you know, certain things. They're talking about personal stuff, etc. And then as soon as Jacinta makes it clear, like, we're going to shoot your friend if you don't tell us what we want to know. And she's like, thank God I don't make friends then. Like, her whole thing was just like, you know, and she's very like removes herself from the whole thing emotionally. It was just so well done. And I love that, you know, you included this line, and it's just such a great one. Jacinta says, you know, perhaps you remember me from that cesspool you operate. And Anna's like, oh yeah, you came with a man, but you left alone.
I know. And I love this character, and she was, to me, was the highlight of the whole episode.
Yeah, I was sad to see her go because I really, really enjoyed her.
Yes.
Yeah, just her whole like.
Her whole attitude.
She gave 0 F's about everything.
She did, right? And so, you know, they stop the limo, right? And like her second in command pulls out a little pistol, and she's like, "What are you doing? Stop! You're gonna get us killed." She gets out, and of course Jacinta, you know, says that, you know, perhaps you remember me from that cesspool, and right away, and it's just like, go screw yourself, right? You're trying to intimidate me. It's not working, okay? And so then Jacinta's like, okay, you know what? Tell me, we want to know where Dixon is, and you're going to tell us. And she's like, no. So then they shoot her limo driver, right?
Yeah.
And then like, and the guys like then like beat the crap out of him, and he's like lying on the ground, probably dead. We don't really know. And then Jacinta looks back at Anna like, okay, did you see what I just did? And Anna just goes, ouch. It was so great. She's like, and
totally,
you know,
yeah.
And then she does the line of like, you know, I never give up anything without getting something of equal value in return. And then Jacinta's like, well, all right, but then, you know, think about this, because we're going to shoot your little girlfriend here your friend in the face. And then Anna, again, without skipping a beat, goes, this is why I don't make friends. And the look on her assistant's face is great. Because she's like, what?
Fantastic. Yep.
Oh, yeah. And again, I was just like, oh, you are so cool. And then, again, what also is cool is that Jacinta immediately folds like a house of cards at that point. Because she immediately is like, what do you want? Right? There's no more threatening intimidation. It's like, what do you want? And that's when she says, I want to go back home. And in the chit chat with the girl, the assistant / second in command, she kind of says she's from Karelia, which is in Russia. And so she's like, I want to go home. She's like, I want the plane and the pilot, and you can have the kid, and you can have Dixon and all that stuff. I get that. And they're like, okay, deal. And so, yeah. But that scene, though, oh my God, it was so. She was just, and again, the scene with her later on when they get to the racetrack is also great. But so just flipping cool. Where I'm like, oh, I love this character, and of course, she's out. You know, she's dead girl walking, but she had her moment there, and she was great. So yeah, there was some great crackling dialogue there, and her performance, like you said, she's like walking around like, I give absolutely no F's to anything you're trying to do to me.
Yeah, it was great because they get to the racetrack, right?
Right.
And they are, when they get there, I was like, you're in your mind, how these dramatic moments work. And you're like, okay, there's something's no one's going to get hurt, but how are they going to get out of this? And when they're starting to go up the stairs and she's like, oh, it's, just on the other side of the parking. And then I was like, okay, but they were going through like a lobby area at first. I still couldn't figure out. I was like, okay, well, there's a back door. Like something's going to happen and they're going to get out of this scene. And I still was not sure because she's such a cool character. She's so cool and icy and removed. And I mean, she's the business person too.
Right.
And in my head, I'm like, is she really gonna is she going to betray them? And I just wasn't sure. And I wasn't sure. And I wasn't sure. And you put it in your notes too. And she sees that poster of the Eiffel Tower and she just remembers that moment with Laurent, and it really affects her. It just, it changes her mind. And she's just like, this way through the garage. And then as soon as you see that, the opening to the garage, because it's it mirrors a scene that happened like a couple scenes back where Daryl was helping Ash look for parts for the plane. They needed a longer hose for something, and they were down in the garage area looking through, various vehicles trying to find the right part or something that would work. And they had their own little scene there. But in that moment, there's a walker comes up and they're like, they have to get away. And there's a gate that they pull closed really quick. And, and Daryl's fast action, saves Ash a little bit. So they have a little bonding moment there, which was fine. But maybe
it is a good reason you're coming with us.
Yeah, that was great. But the important thing of that scene was the visualization of that gate that kept those cars kind of like secure, like back in the day. So as soon as they came up near that gate, you're like, oh, now I know what she's doing. She's going to bring them through there, which is true. That's what she tried to do, and it worked perfectly because the ghouls come out. They're all attacked. They lost a handful, I would say, of their little troop there, probably cut in half maybe. And the biggest thing too is Jacinta is bit.
Oh yeah.
On the arm.
Right on the arm, right on the forearm, yeah. And I kind of get the sense that when they, and first of all, Jacinta is like making Anna like walk point, right? She's out front. And they're
you
all
go
behind
first.
her. Yeah, you go first. You go first. And so Anna, that's when Anna sees the poster of the Eiffel Tower, and she kind of has that moment of like, you know what, these guys can go hang because I really like the kid. Not so much Dixon. I'm sure she enjoys Dixon. He makes her laugh, but she really liked the kid. And she just kind of realized I can't do this. And so then when they come up to the garage, they come up to that gate door, or one like the one we saw with Dixon and Ash. She sees there is like a little like security office door to the side, and it's got a green sign and stuff. And so I think she kind of formulated this plan of, I'm going to lead them in here. Then the walkers are going to show up. And once the chaos starts of, them panicking and shooting, she was going to try and make a dash for that little office or open that door and run. And she tries to do that, but it's like the door's locked. She can't open it or whatever. But yes, in the chaos, you see a couple guys get dragged down and eaten. And Jacinta does get a big chunk taken right out of her forearm, which, oh my God, you'd think that would hurt so much, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then Jacinta and the rest of the guys that are still alive, they retreat back and they close the door, and Anna she's trapped inside like that area where all the ghouls are. And she runs up to the door and she's trying to open it, and Jacinta's right there and kind of trying to, like giving her like the like, ha ha ha, you're dead, even though she's dead too, right? And she says, Anna says like, Dixon will kill you. And Jacinta goes, no, God is on our side. And this then was my favorite line of the whole episode, where without missing a beat, Anna just kind of smiles and goes, God gave up on us a long time ago. And just a killer line. And then she just kind of stands there and stares at Jacinta and lets the ghouls just kind of walk up behind her and just, have a little afternoon snack. And my only thing about it was I thought it was a cool death, and she was an amazing character. I just didn't think she was the type to just give up like that. It's like ghouls are dum-dums. You can get around them. They're slow, and remember, directly across from where the gate door was, there was an opening that led out onto the track. You could see the light coming from it, right? And so it's like, Anna, you could like run that way. I don't know. I'm always of the mindset of, until I am like cornered and there's no way out, I'm going to try everything possible to get away.
Yeah. And even in that situation, I'm kicking, I'm pushing, I'm screaming, doing whatever I can.
Right. And it's like, okay, but she again, I get it. It was a cool moment, but I was just like, oh, I'm not sure if that character would just give up the ghost that quickly.
I don't know. I feel like in that moment, because she was so homesick to get home, she knew it wasn't going to work out that way, that she'd have to like almost give up a part of her soul, because she'd have to, in order for everything to work out, she'd have to give up Laurent. And she just had too much of a connection to the boy and just did not want him to be victimized like she was when she was younger, So she's just tying all of that stuff together and realizes that she just does not have a solution or a way to get out. And she sort of resigns herself. But I was just so surprised. I just put down that she was just so calm.
Yeah, she was.
There's plenty of people I've seen that just give up to the eventuality, but they still scream a little because they're in pain. And she just doesn't make a sound.
She doesn't make a sound. Yeah. They just kind of pull her down, and she just, it just kind of like slips beneath the waves almost. Right. Again, it was super cool. And that like coolness fits with that character. She's a survivor. And I mean, obviously it's like I said, this episode, there's so much, like, we're wrapping up all the French stuff.
Right.
So with the exception of Falou, nobody is left in France alive that we know of. I mean, everybody, I guess Sabine is still alive because we didn't see her bite it. But other than that, everybody else is dead. Right.
Yeah. God. It's interesting. Very interesting. I mean, it's very rare that you see the series like wrap it up like that, like with such a definitive like a demarcation, like boom, France is over.
We are done with France, people. Yeah.
So we talked just like briefly, kind of jumped over a scene when we got talking about Anna a little, but we're at the racetrack, so there's a couple of scenes where it's sort of established, starting back towards the beginning of the episode, Daryl is like, he says to Laurent in the beginning, right, in the scene with the guitar, Laurent's like, you're going to stay behind, aren't you? And he's like, it makes the most sense if I do. You and Carol go with Ash and blah, blah, blah. And then there's a counter scene where Carol is with Ash, and it's like, I almost want to shake Carol and go, you can't fix this by talking to him. He's going to be pissed no matter what. But she tries.
Right. Oh, she does.
But in her talking to him, she's like, okay, so clearly I will stay behind and Daryl and Laurent will go with you. And that's the way it needs to be. So, and I kind of knew that was going to happen, that they were both going to be like, no, you go, no, you go, no, you go. So that sort of goes back and forth. But the scene that I just mentioned where they were in the garage and Ash and Daryl are talking, Daryl has a chance to sort of talk a little bit about like Laurent and a little bit about Carol and really sort of humanize them to Ash. And he's got this great moment where, Ash is upset because she used her dead daughter. But there's a moment where Daryl's like, he's trying to get closer to Ash and, connect with him a little more. And he's like, I'm sorry about your kid. Carol talked to me. She told me about that. And then he was like, I was there that day when Carol's daughter died, and I wouldn't wish that on anybody. And so Ash asks, you don't have any kids? And he's like, no, I don't. But part of me wanted to be like, but he is a father figure to so many. He doesn't have any biological children, but he's got lots of children that
he knows of.
But it's like he doesn't have any, biological children he knows of, but he has lots of children in his life that are part of him. And I know he sort of puts himself a little bit in both of their shoes just for a second, is like, he can't imagine, something happening to, Judith or to RJ, or any of the other little kids that have been a part of it.
Okay, Judith, yes, but RJ, I mean, would we really miss him all that much? That little kid won't shut up, right? He's just a little chatterbox.
But, maybe Daryl would, because at least RJ was his responsibility, ultimately. But it's like, so he's sort of trying to connect with Ash a bit. And it's clear he talks to Ash and he's like, yeah, basically like, I'm going to stay. Like, they need to go. And Ash doesn't say, Carol already said she wanted to go. Ash is basically like, okay, you've convinced me. Like, Ash almost has like this mentality. And then there's a later scene where it comes out and basically Ash and Daryl are both like, Daryl needs to stay. He knows this area better. He'll be able to figure something, you know what I mean? Like, it's true. Daryl has like a connection with people, they were already trying to work out a way for him to get home, and he was working his way through certain channels. He just has to do those things again. And then, Carol and the boy, the immediate danger, and they can get out of here. So they have those scenes, and they've come to grips with like, he's basically like, it's a democracy, you lose.
Yeah, you're outvoted.
Yeah. And so that's great. And there's a great moment where he's doing some teaching. Ash is showing some stuff to Laurent, and Carol and Daryl see that, and they're like, oh, they're getting along, and it's good because, Laurent connecting with Ash is important because Ash has to feel like there's a reason for him to help, that has nothing to do with Carol. So connecting himself with Laurent makes it more important
and Carol says that at one point too. She said, like, don't take it out on Daryl and Laurent for what I did to you. It's that, and when she's making the argument of I will stay behind. You need to get them out of there. And I know you're pissed, but you're pissed at me, not them.
Not at them. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, that's why he sides with Daryl, I think, in a way, because it's Ash's way of kind of messing with Carol. Like, no. You're leaving with me. So the whole reason you came here, which was to find this smelly dude with all the scars, you're not even going to get to take him home with you. You know what I mean? It's like he's twisting the knife a little back on her. We're like, no. You're coming with me. And not only that, you're getting a kid to take care of. Wow.
Hooray.
Yeah. So, but, and I also love that too, that she gives Daryl his crossbow back.
Yeah, she does.
Which was a fun little moment. And he's like, no way. And she's like, well, Ash had a 1 carry-on minimum, so this was all I could bring. I thought that was a fun little line.
Yeah, that's a good one. I love it.
Yeah.
And because he's like, oh, did you drag this all the way here?
Mm-hmm.
Because he knows where he lost it. He knows it was taken away at that garage location,
garage place thing
in back in Maine. Yeah, and so he knows how far it's traveled to get back to it, yeah. I love to, like, they're just sort of like, you could say they were kind of bonding. They're moving in a certain location. It's like, okay, we're finishing off, getting, little tweaks to the plane, and we should be ready to go soon. And they're in the midst of that. And of course, you can't have any kind of peace and happiness in the apocalypse. And then Falou and Kadron and Aquila show up, and they're like, yeah, so they're coming, so you have to get out of here now.
I think actually it's just Falou and Kadron.
Oh, really?
The girls are not with them. Yeah, it's not. So because they then later on they show up, and that's when Falou reunites with her at wherever that building was, and then they have the little hand touching thing by the car and all that stuff. But it's just Kadron and yeah. And they're like, hey, you guys got to split because, the bad guys are on the way. And they're looking for you. They're going to find you. So you guys got to ditty out of here. And so they roll the plane out. And I think it's right at that point that they hear the the vehicles or something. And they wheel the plane out. And then that motorcycle guy, like, rides out in the open and then rides away, and so they're like, crap, they're here. And so that's when Daryl and Falou and Kadron are going to kind of buy them time so they can take off.
And it's crazy too, because it's like they're trying to be, when they first are approaching the track, they're like, okay, stay here in case they try and get away. And so when they're trying to be all quiet like about it, when in the long run you can hear that motorcycle like from 5 miles away, you can hear that motorcycle coming, crotch rocket. So it's like it's like, was that, I understand in terms of like speed, that's a good choice to try and like chase down a plane, but sound wise, they weren't able to sort of sneak up the way I think they thought they were going to.
No.
Yeah. So this is great.
They come.
No. Go ahead.
I was gonna say the same thing you were, that the bad guys come driving up in all their vehicles, and this starts like a really good battle sequence, a firefight.
Yeah.
And it starts with Kadron pulling out that grenade that he got 20 minutes earlier. And it's really cool because he it's a perfect toss, right? And it goes right underneath the lead Jeep and blows it up, and basically turns it into a burning wreck. And then I just was marveled because, remember, Kadron's like, at this point his arm is in a sling, right, from all the stuff that happened to him when he was tortured, and so he's firing a like an AK-47 from the hip with one hand. And he is like the killer shot. I mean, he's taking out dudes that are like 100 yards away with one bullet. I'm like, damn, that guy is a good shot with only one arm.
And he's only got one eye. He's wearing the patch.
Yeah, that's true, because he's got the eye patch. Yeah, that's like, do not mess with Kadron. Holy crap,
I know.
So so they're shooting at each other, and Jacinta's there, and Jacinta's already starting to feel the effects of the bite, but like she's got the whole, we're gonna get the boy and it's gonna be worth it kind of thing, and then she sees the plane start to taxi down to take off, and that's when she like tells the dude on the motorcycle to stop him. Yeah. And so Ash and Carol and the kid are starting to go, and the motorcycle is roaring up behind them and shooting at them. And then Daryl gets out. Daryl's gun conveniently has a scope on it, and so he then lines up a shot, and they do the whole he exhales, right? And then he just very calmly lines up the shot and he pulls the trigger and, of course he zaps the guy and he wipes out. And so you think, oh, they're safe. But then like another vehicle gets in front of them and is coming straight at the plane. And Daryl's trying to shoot it, but he's out of ammo. And so he's trying to reload. And it's like, oh my God, they're going to make it. And then you hear a gunshot go off, and the guy driving, like it's like a dune buggy kind of a thing, or a four-wheeler, so it's not like doesn't have a windshield or anything. So the driver gets hit, and the vehicle kind of skids out of the way, and the plane takes off, and it makes it into the air, and we pull back from Ash, and he's celebrating, and you notice now that the passenger seat there, or the co-pilot seat where Carol was sitting, is now empty.
Yeah. It was the most satisfying takeoff, because once he gets up in the air and he knows like he's out of range of anything to be shot at or whatever, and he looks down, he's like, suck it, motherfuckers! And I'm like, yes.
Yeah, he was very excited, you know. Yeah. But anyway, so they're in the air and they're flying away, and now we have Daryl and Carol are both still on the ground. And so again, surprising absolutely no one, right?
Oh, of course not. Yeah. Even him, like neither one of them are surprised. He goes right up to her and he's like, I had the shot. She's like, I know you did.
I know.
I took it, No.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, it was sort of like, really, I as the scene is unfolding, and it's very dramatic and it's exciting and it's tense and all that. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, there's no way that she is going to fly away. There's no, either they're going to take off and they're going to be able to get into the air, but then like they'll have to land a mile away because the plane got hit by a bullet and the fuel line got shot or something. You know what I mean? Like a technical problem will force them to land, or the plane's not going to take off at all and then they're stuck there. But there was no way that she was going to go all the way there, look for this guy, find him against all these odds, and then they would separate them again. It's just like, nah, that ain't happening. So that was certainly a weaker part of the script, just because you knew that the two stars were not, now that they're together, they weren't going to split them up again.
Yeah. And they did an okay job of setting up the whole, they picked someone who got Laurent away, who had lost his son. And then you connect Laurent with him, who is, always in search of like a father figure to sort of look up to. And, Daryl was that person, and he still does. But, you could sort of see Ash sort of filling in that gap. And he sort of enjoyed teaching Laurent some stuff there. And you could sort of see them heading in that direction of, Ash feeling protective of Laurent and Laurent feeling connected to Ash. And so it made it okay for them to leave by themselves and for Carol and Daryl to both be left behind.
Yeah. And so, then as the plane is leaving, this was another weird spot in the episode for me where I was just like, because the plane flies away, and then Jacinta, when she sees that, then she's like, oh, wait, maybe God isn't on our side, because that kid was like the savior and he's obviously gone. And then she looks down at her arm and sort of has that, oh yeah, and I have this thing that's gonna kill me. Great. and so then my note was that I said, I guess the last thing that went through Jacinta's mind was that bullet.
Yeah, exactly.
Because she puts the gun under her chin, and then it cuts to like Daryl and Carol, and you hear the gunshot in the back. But the thing that threw me then was that once she kills herself, literally everybody there is like, well, that's it, we're done fighting. And it's almost like it was like the end of the game, right? And they all went out and shook hands and then left. I mean, I'm like, but they just killed a whole bunch of your guys, and you're just going to be like, yeah, well, we had a good try. But they do apparently, because they're gone.
Yeah. So isn't that amazing?
Well, and I mean, I get it. The whole point of it was to get the kid, and the kid is obviously gone. But it's like, again, like, what if like one of those guys that got shot was like your best friend? Wouldn't you be like, screw you, I'm going to kill you? I don't know. It seemed a little convenient that there wasn't even a scene with Sabine leaving. She's just gone.
Yeah, she's just up and gone. Yeah.
Right. Because literally the next scene it cuts to is they are in the little Jeep they had, and of course Daryl and Carol are riding on the motorcycle, and they show up at this like chateau or farm or something, and there's like a bunch of like the rooftop people there, including Aquila and those folks, and that's where that whole sequence, that's where the Scottish people show up, and obviously they're we're gonna walk through the tunnel, and they're gonna lead us, and they're guides, and you can trust them, and because Falou knows them, and then they spend the night, and they're drinking the wine around the campfire, and it's very relaxed. There's nobody walking a perimeter. There's nobody's like, I gotta go on guard duty. I mean, they're just sort of like, yeah, we're cool. We're camping out. It's great. I mean,
everything's fine.
Pretty much. It's just sort of like, nope, you know what? The bad guys have been defeated, and now we're good. But you do have this moment where Falou is clearly flirting with Aquila, and he keeps asking her to go with them. And she keeps saying no, because she wants to look for her sister. Jamila or Jasilla or something like that, where she doesn't know if she's alive or dead. She's just kind of missing, and she's like, I can't really leave. I gotta like answer that question one way or the other. And so, but they're kind of they're out, and I think they have a little smooch there, right? And so it was a great scene for Falou. I was happy for him. I was also very worried for him.
Yes, I was too.
Because it's like, as soon as anybody shows any sign of planning for the future or trying to be happy, that is usually the dinner bell ringing for them on this show, right?
That is true. Yeah.
Yeah. But then I also loved it because Falou tells this great story about when he was in France and the family next door, and they like accused him of playing his music too loud, and he was making smelly foreign food that they complained about, and then all these kind of like racist kind of stuff, and then he worked in a hospital, so he has some kind of medical training in the before time, and then the guy who lives across the next door brings this kid over who had her airway was blocked, and the dad thought that she had died, and then he saved the kid, and they're like, well, what did the dad say? And he said, well, he didn't say anything, but I could see respect in his eye, and then one of these two Scottish people, Angus, is like, so what did he say? He said something like, so the apocalypse put an end to racism, huh? and then I thought Falou
I giggled at that one. Yeah.
I did too, yeah. And then Falou had a great follow-up where he said, well, right now there are only two kinds of people, the dead and the living. And I thought that I've seen that thought has been expressed in other zombie films and stories, so it's not completely original, but it's still a good one, and it worked well, and anyway it was interesting to see. But we're introduced to these two new characters, right, that show up, and it's Angus and Fiona, I think was her name. And so they it was weird. I guess we're supposed to believe that like they like walked through the channel, but like years earlier.
Yeah.
Right. And they've been in France for a long time, which the first time I saw it, I thought they just walked across and now they're going to lead them back, which brought up huge problems for like, how do you guys not know about all this crap in the tunnels if you just walked through them? But then when I watched the second time, I kind of got the idea that, oh, wait, they've probably been here for years. So they knew there were checkpoints. And so they needed the food and all that to kind of bribe their way across. But they didn't know or realize that, all the British guards are dead, and that the bat guano is piling up, and that all the bioluminescence and all that shit. So, but anyway, we are introduced to these characters. What did you think of these new characters coming in at this late hour?
I feel it was probably the most clunky and convenient introduction of side characters I've ever seen. As soon as they introduced them, I was like, first of all, they're going to do something to like screw with them, like they're gonna betray them in some way, and I don't know how it's gonna happen, but it'll happen. So they're gonna betray them in some way. Something's gonna happen. They will either die, or they're going to harm someone else and then like run away or something. So it made me really, really nervous for Kadron. Because he's the, I'm not nervous for Carol or Daryl, but Kadron was the other person, because Falou decided not to go with. So when Falou decided not to go with, I was like, oh, Kadron, something's going to happen here. So I just felt that they were very convenient. And I was like, oh my God. And I don't care how cute their Scottish accents are. And could they have picked more like normal Scottish names? Like they literally picked like the Mike and Jennifer of Scottish names. So they're like Angus and Fiona. And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's straight out of Central Casting.
Yeah, no shit. And, the only thing that I found amusing at all was when they were first being introduced, and someone said something about going to, they're going to help you get over to England. And they were like, Carol was like, oh, they speak English, and they're like, oh, they're from Scotland, so no, not really.
not exactly.
Yeah, Kadron made some crack about it. I was like, and Kadron, like, I loved Kadron in this episode. I loved his growth. I loved his, he's got like this little budding like friendship with Falou that I think is adorable. And something cool that came out of like while they were sitting at that fire before, the night before they were going to leave is, like Carol goes off and has her little, moment, and, Falou and Aquila are having their moment. And so Daryl's at the fire with Kadron, and they start talking. And finally they start talking about Kadron's brother. And in my head, I was like, oh, let this be the moment. Let this be the moment. Because I made that comment either last episode or the episode before, where I was pretty sure I was like, Daryl didn't kill his brother. And he didn't.
You're right. Yeah.
The girl did. Con girl. But she blamed it on Daryl. So he immediately was like, oh, let me find him, the American. And so that's what he had been. And I just love that moment where he's like, all of the things that I did. And he's already feeling guilty about some of the things he did already, in service of Janae, so he's already feeling a lot of guilt over the things he's done and where he's been. And I think he's in this sort of redemptive arc anyway. And then on top of it, to sort of pile on. Oh, and by the way, while you were doing these terrible things for Janae, you were sort of, I'll do anything to kill Daryl Dixon. And it's like, great. But you didn't have a real reason for doing it.
Right, it was based on a lie.
Yeah. I thought that was really great that in a season that's this short, and in an episode that was kind of all over the place, in my opinion, I was really glad that they allowed Kadron and Daryl to have that moment. It's sort of like a nice quiet moment by the fire, Kadron learning the truth. It changed him. You can tell that there was a big change in him in that moment, because I think in the time that he's spent with Daryl while they've been trying to save Laurent, I think, Kadron didn't have, he was now finally able to sort of see the light as far as Janae is concerned, because he was tortured by them and everything. So he was able to sort of, he got the wool was over his eyes for so long, and he was able to tear all of that off and sort of see everything as it is. And, that goes to show with like the closeness he was starting to get with Falou. And you could see him really liking Daryl, like really enjoying Daryl as a person, respecting him as like a kick-ass like fighter, etc., but not really knowing what to do there because he's got this misplaced emotion. He's still, he's dealing with, all these changes in his life, but he still is missing his brother and is sad and ultimately he's angry at Daryl because Daryl's the one he thought was So he's already, it was just, I just think like I said, it's a short season and just a few episodes and not, a whole bunch of other characters to try and develop, that they took the time to sort of have Kadron have this full character arc was really great. And I really enjoyed him. He was one of my favorite things of this season, to see that shift. And there's so much nuance and so many layers to him. He was the one thing throughout this whole season that I think I was never disappointed. I always really looked forward to any of the scenes that Kadron was in. And I'm glad that, like, at the end of the episode, as much as it's sort of like a question mark, he ran on ahead while he's tripping balls.
He's tripping balls. Yes, he is. Yes.
I really am hopeful that we'll see him again. And I know about some of the new cast members that are, because I shouldn't, but I pay attention to social media. So I know, how dare I? But I don't know if he has signed on for next season yet. I haven't seen, yay or nay, one or the other. But I don't want to know, because I think it would be cool if they ran back into him at some point, if he became a part of their group somehow. I don't know. I just think that'd be really interesting,
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, that I agree. He was in season 1, he was like a one-note villain pretty much.
Yeah.
And the fact that they, in 6 episodes, very, very small amount of time to tell your story, they devoted a lot of time to develop him and flesh him out and make him way more than just a single note villain. And I guess, they kind of had the freedom to do that because, let's be honest, we already know everything there is to know about Daryl and Carol. So they didn't have to spend all that much time working on expanding their characters. A little bit with Carol and this weird PTSD thing she's having, but not much, right? I mean, that was it. So that does free up time to kind of work on some of the characters. But I love that scene when Daryl basically lets him know, by the way, I didn't kill him, because Kadron's like, I never found out like what happened. So he's like, what can you would, and again, it's up until this point, he's been operating on the idea of Dixon killed my brother, but you know what? I kind of, by, with Laurent there helping me see the light, and now I have brought God into my life, I can forgive him for this horrible thing that he did. He took my brother from me, but I'm able to forgive him. But now he's still curious. He's like, what happened? Was it a fair fight? Did he almost kill you? Was it, what? Because he doesn't really know. All he did is he came upon the guy and he was dead, right? And that's when Daryl drops that bomb of like, it wasn't me. And he's like, well, who was it? And he's like, it was this skinny girl. And he's like, what girl? And then he's like, I don't know. She was there with this old dude who he was con me into thinking, pretending he was blind, which you remember that, right? That the old man kind of was like, I can't see very well, and
he could.
And so then Kadron is like, she told me that you killed him. And I thought Daryl was great when he's like, what did you expect her to say? Right? It's like, and again, remember that scene, like, Kadron is like an inch away from wasting both of those characters in that sequence, because he is pissed his brother's dead, right?
Yeah.
And so she would have said anything to save her life, right? And remember, don't they, like, I think they kill the old man, right? They smash his head open. I mean, so that girl's, not only, first of all, she's a professional liar already, but she's now, it's like life and death, so she's gonna say whatever she can. But I mean, this like rocks Kadron to the core, right? Because like you said, he's now looking back at like every decision that he has made since that lie was told, and the carnage that it has caused in his life, because all of his men are dead, his brother is dead, he has been tortured, he's lost fingers, he's lost an eye. I mean, it's just everything that's happened, and it was all completely unnecessary. Like, think of all the nuns they killed, right? And everything. And so he is like really shook by this. And I thought Daryl did a really good job when he, kind of ends that conversation by saying she was a really good liar.
Yeah.
And basically saying, hey, man, it's not your fault. You know, you were operating on the information that you were given, and the person that gave you that information, she is like a pro liar and can make anything seem believable. So I know you're gonna, but don't beat yourself up on this. I thought that scene was I agree with you 1,000%. I thought that scene was great. It was quiet. It was by the fire. It was just these two actors going at it. And I also loved it because finally in one of these shows, somebody actually goes, you know, what really happened in this thing is this, right? Where we're always like, tell them, why aren't you telling them? You know? So,
yeah.
So
yet another instance of, we were talking about this, that one of the things that I loved about season 1 was there were a handful of moments where there were these, horror movie, horror TV show, zombie show, like Walking Dead specific, like there were some things there that you were like, okay, well, this happened, so that means A, B, and C is going to happen because of it. And there were a handful of moments where they didn't do that. They didn't go down that road. And I used that example of when they came upon the little community of young people. Yes. That would have gone a different way on any other series. And we were sort of expecting them to turn into like a bloodbath. It was the direct opposite. It was lovely. It was really nice. And there were moments like that. And this is another one where you actually get a person saying, no, man, that's not what happened. Let me tell you what happened. And like having someone have a reckoning moment of finding that truth out. So I would love to see Kadron again. I really, really hope that they bring him back for season 3. But I also know in a series where they only have 6 episodes, if we don't see him again, I know that he had that peaceful moment with Daryl where he needed to reevaluate everything. He also then ended up by having that moment with his brother in the channel, his brother's, because he was tripping balls. I think that was another journey he had to go on. And so I know that like wherever he's going to be next, he has done as much work as he can. He still has more to go, but he's working on shedding all of the bad feelings about all of that stuff. He's working on getting that all out of his system. Yeah. And it just means he's going to be that much of a healthier person when he comes out the other end of that channel. So whether we see
doesn't get eaten.
He's such a good fighter though. You know what I mean? Like you have to think at some point.
He's a kite right now though. I mean, he sees a ghoul and they'll be like, Papa? Mama?
Well,
who knows?
Maybe Carol and Daryl will catch up to him. Let's think good thoughts.
They do have that going for them that like there's only one direction he could have gone, and there's not a lot of ways to turn. It's just basically a straight line. So yes, you would think that they might come up upon him at some point, and maybe he'll pass out or whatever, and what I mean. We'll have to see, But yeah, I thought that scene was great. And then you're right. We kind of have Falou and he's kind of getting his thing on with Aquila. And then we have Carol kind of off by herself. And then Daryl, after the Kadron scene, he goes out and finds Carol and she's like out by like, walking around. And I thought it was great because Carol is basically kind of talking about all the stuff that's, happening to her with seeing the Sophia ghoul everywhere and all that. But what was great is that we get a Henry reference and we got a Lizzie reference in this episode. Holy crap, man. I mean, the original Look at the Flowers girl. Holy crap,
Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, it helps. I mean, she's talking about Sophia. She was dealing with that and then she had to kill a child. Right. And then she had to watch her children die. It's like she's sort of listing out all of these traumas. Yeah. And I'm not sure I've heard her say the name Lizzie in
since that episode.
Years? Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, Lizzie was not only she had to kill a child, it was a child that she was like charged with taking care of.
Yeah.
But again, I appreciate the callback. I think that's cool. And it does kind of help strengthen this weird PTSD thing that she's experiencing by like kind of pointing out, she's had like a lot of child loss trauma in her apocalypse life, and so it makes a little more sense. But
you know what I wish, and I wasn't as like she has the conversation with Daryl, and then she has the scene with the Sophia Ghoul, who's the Sophia Ghoul, and then she sees her as a young girl, which is what she said. Which is what she said in that moment with Daryl. Is that
she's like, I can't.
She
remember
can only
what she
remember
looks
her. Like. Yeah, I can only remember what she looked like walking out of the barn. I can't remember what she looked like before, and that's terrible. Yeah. But what I wish is all of these moments she's had where she can't remember what she looked like. I think it would have made more sense if she saw if she saw Sophia coming out of the barn, and what if she like closes her eyes and tries to look away and she sees someone who looks like Lizzie, like from behind holding, looking at a meadow of flowers. Oh my God. And what if she turns her head and she sees a spike or whatever, and she pictures Henry's head on, you know what I mean? I think if we'd seen all of those visuals that she is describing to Daryl, I think then that through line that she says to him in that moment would have more meat to it. I think at least for me, I don't want to speak for the crowd, but for me, because I felt like they were just sort of like, rehashing this old thing just as a plot point to have this thing with Ash. If she's truly feeling this way, I just wish we'd seen other little snippets more than just the Sophia thing. I think maybe it would have felt a little bit more, I guess, for lack of a better word, a little bit more robust than if it was just, because Sophia was so long ago. Right. And I get it. It's her child, and that trauma is real. But I think if it had been sort of sprinkled in with all these other little moments that have happened since then maybe, it would be a little different. It would feel a little different. I don't know.
Yeah. And now that I think about it, they didn't say her name, but I want to say there was an episode, seasons after the Look at the Flowers episode, where Carol, like, they went into a dog training school and Carol got drugged or something, and she's like having this weird freak out, and she sees the textbook, and it has Carol, and she's smiling, and like sitting around the table is Henry, and I think Lizzie was in that picture too, as well. Like, it was like it was a weird like nightmare thing she was experiencing, because someone like drugged her on purpose. Like, they took her in there to leave her. I can't remember all the logistics of the episode, but I want to say that might be the last time we've seen or heard of Lizzie at all. So but yeah, you're absolutely right. That I think it would have certainly added another layer and shown, okay, you know what, like, not just the barn is coming back to haunt Carol now, but like all of these traumas involving children are now coming up all the time, right? Every time she sees a barn door, every time she sees a flower or whatever, she's freaking out, and it would have added a little bit more weight to it. But whatever, it is, like you said, 6 episodes, right? You got to move it along.
Yeah. So. Exactly. I think my feeling was like, if you knew you only had the 6 episodes and you couldn't like flesh it out as deeply as it probably deserved, it just felt, I don't know. I didn't like that they included it at all. If they couldn't really make it as robust as I was hoping it to be. But again, like you said, 6 episodes.
You can't always get what you want. Okay.
But if you try,
sometimes.
Not all the time.
It's almost as if that sentiment is kind of like a through line through this entire episode.
I know. It's crazy. So speaking of British rockers, we're about to walk to Britain.
That's right.
So my first thought is I'm one of those people that I don't get claustrophobic, But the idea of, like, I'm never going to go into, like, caves and stuff like that. Like, I'm just not that person. The connection of having something be on top of you, I can't, I don't know what it is. It freaks me out. I would never, ever, ever be able to walk the channel. If my life depended on it, different story, however. Yeah. But I loved that moment where they were like, I hope the walls hold, like, that, because they showed like some leaking or whatever. And I loved how Angus was like, she's like, I hope I can swim. He's like, oh, the pressure would kill you right away. You wouldn't have to worry about swimming. And she's like, thanks.
Yeah.
And like, he's not good at, like, making people feel better there.
He's just trying to let her down easy. Yeah. Like they're walking along and they see like water dripping from the ceiling. And Daryl's like, I hope that roof holds. And Carol kind of very playfully goes, yeah, like drowning isn't on my to-do list for today. And that's when Angus is like, yeah, you wouldn't have time to drown. The pressure would kill you before you got your hair wet. And then she literally is like, thanks.
Yeah, I was like, we were just kind of joking around. We're just making conversation here, Angus. Calm down.
Oh, calm down. Yeah.
Yeah, calm down. So to me, the idea of walking the channel is total freak out mode. Knowing that an entire ocean is directly above your heads, I'm not sure I would be able to do that. But listen, these are stronger people. I would not survive in the apocalypse anyway. So having the decision to walk the channel probably wouldn't even be presented to me at this point, because I'd be long gone. But even so, I'm still like, walking the channel, yikes. But right off the bat, they kick like a little, spot of, looks like dust or dirt of some kind. And then right off the bat, they're like, oh, it's guano. Which is, for those that didn't get it, it's just, all it is bat shit. Poop from bats.
And you know what? It rhymes with mono.
It does it, though. But they made a comment, Chekhov's comment at the beginning where they're like, it's been known, the dust has been known to be psychoactive. And I was like, yeah, that's coming back to haunt them. They're in yes, there's an opening on either end of the channel, but essentially you're in an enclosed space.
Right. Oh yeah.
Yeah, with a bunch of psychoactive dust.
and then I think Fiona at one point, right after that, goes, if you breathe it too long, you start getting paranoid and start seeing things. And I'm just like, oh, okay, this is not going to end well,
Right. And right after they say that stuff, they walk, they find the little checkpoint that isn't, with soldiers that have been gone for quite some time. And and when they walk past, they can see that there are some gas masks, and I'm like, why didn't you just take them?
Well, and then and there. Before he finds the gas mask, they're like looking at him, and like, there's one soldier's like lying on the ground and has like a screwdriver in his skull, and they're like all over the place. And Daryl even says they killed each other. And so it's like, okay, guys, you know what? Do the zombie math here, okay? You just found out that this place is full of a psychoactive substance, and then you find a checkpoint where it looks like the soldiers went crazy and slaughtered each other. And then you find two masks. It's like, take the freaking masks. It's like, why wouldn't you? Yeah. That was. I was just like, okay. And then they could have written it in where they take the two masks, and then they're like, all right, we'll rotate them like every 20 minutes or something, right? And then somebody is still gonna get affected, and you could still have all the craziness happen. I mean, but whatever. I thought that was one of the weakest parts of the whole story, was they see those two masks and they don't take them. When it's like, why did you bother to show those two masks then? Oh, that's right, because we need to have our two heroes wear them later on. You know what I mean? It was just like, okay. But they don't, and they keep going on, and then we see the bioluminescence of the ghouls, which was kind of a cool effect. Right, where they're like glowing in their mouths and under their skin, and the featurette Nicotero talked about how they did that, and they kind of used black light for a lot of it.
That's so cool.
Oh yeah, and like he said, like they painted like this black light substance on the ghouls, and then they put like a clear latex on top of it, like a clear silicone, so that when the light would shine on it, it would glow through it, and very interesting. Wow. And super cool looking, right? I mean, just an amazing effect and an amazing visual of them, where like it's kind of glowing all over, and you see the ghouls, and it's like coming out of their eyes, and it's coming out of their like faces and their cheeks. It's very, very impressive. And of course, Daryl makes the Firefly reference, right?
Yeah, of course.
Because Fiona's like, some creatures are able to create their own luminescence, and he's like, oh, like fireflies. And she's like, exactly, And so again, hitting us.
He's
over
a smart one.
He is. Oh, you're a keeper. And so anyway, they keep going, and then almost immediately they all start suffering from hallucinations at the same time. Mm-hmm. Right, Carol starts getting all wobbly, and then I think Angus like actually falls over, and that's what kind of wakes up the ghouls. Because this was another thing that really bothered me. It's like, oh, there's like a couple ghouls here and there on either side that are sleeping or not active, and it's like, why are you not killing them as you go by them?
I never understand that. Especially like what's his face? Kudron has like, it's almost like a bayonet, Yeah. You can easily just like,
right.
You don't have
shoot
to
them.
disturb them. You can just stab.
Yes.
Because if you're going to be walking along that channel, do you want those? Yes, you're going to be able to outwalk them, but at some point in your 9-hour walk, you're going to have to take some breaks. Wouldn't you like to make sure that they're not coming up behind you?
Yeah.
You go to take a break 2 hours from now.
Yeah, exactly. Or you're coming along, and suddenly you run into a whole bunch of ghouls in front of you, and you decide, well, let's retreat a little bit. But now there's a bunch of ghouls behind you. It's just like, and again, this is not day 3. This is day 8,000. It's like, you guys know better. And so that bothered me a lot. But they do, and so they're kind of walking through, and then Angus falls over, and that kind of stirs up all the ghouls, and so they're kind of rising up out of these big piles of bat shit, and they start shooting at them, and it's at that point that Carol sees the Sophia Walker, and she follows her into one of those little access tunnels, so she wanders away, and Kudron thinks he sees his brother, and Daryl and like Kudron, like he holds his cool gun up, and then he looks at it, and it's like suddenly turned into a sword, and he's like,
that was so weird. I loved it.
Oh yeah, and he drops that, and then so he's like literally like, Michelle, and he's like, not gonna try and kill it because he thinks it's like his brother, and Daryl runs up and takes it out, and Kudron's like, you killed my brother, and he is like out to kill Daryl. Dead. I mean, and he ends up stabbing him in the shoulder. So Daryl has yet another convenient shoulder wound, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
right.
And then I think at that point Kudron kind of runs off down the tunnel because I think he sees his brother again, down going towards
on
England.
A different ghoul. Yeah.
And so he follows him. And so at that point, Daryl finally goes, it's possible that we're suffering the psychoactive effects of the bat guano that they warned us about. So he then finally remembers the gas masks and runs back to get them. And that's where our 2 Scottish people show up again. And this was my comment. And before I say this, let me just ask you and our audience as well, what is it that I always say about people you meet on the road in these shows?
Trust no one.
And why is that? Because what are people you meet on the road gonna do?
They're gonna screw you.
They're gonna kill you, and they're gonna take your stuff, right? So Daryl goes to get the gas mask, and what happens? The Scottish people show up, and they try to kill Daryl and take his stuff.
Surprise, surprise.
My comment was, I'm shocked. Shocked, I tells you. And so they they hit him with a shovel right in the head, and I'm sure he's a little concussed and he's tripping balls. And it's at this point that he has his Conan the Barbarian moment where he sees Isabel.
Yeah.
And Isabel, so the actor got to make another appearance, and she kind of walks up, and then she's like right on top of him, which is kind of a weird thing where, I mean, she's like literally like her nose is like an inch from his nose, right? And she tells this kind of touching story about, remember, what I told you the first time we met, which is like bet on hope. And it's sort of like I kept waiting for her to be like, okay, now you got to get up and you got to do what you do. That's sort of like it's his mind basically telling him, dude, you got to act or you're going to die. And he does, and he ends up killing both of the Scottish people. Not that they don't have it coming. Right. But I thought it was, again, very cool and very Daryl and very cold-blooded that he kills Fiona, and then he takes her gun and he takes the gas mask off her head, and then he blows her brains out.
Yeah.
I thought that was very cool. And then I think he sees his grandfather too, right?
Yes. Yeah, because one of the things that she says is she says something that refers to him,
She said, like, you didn't come to France to die too, or something like that.
Right. He doesn't want you to die here either. So you need to get up and do your thing.
Get up and get your and then I thought it was kind of neat that Izzy then, after he gets up and kind of vanquishes the Scots, he looks and she's like walking away, and she kind of like turns into fireflies and fades into the mist. And I'm like, all right, that's a little over the top, but it still was cool, Yeah.
It was cute. It was cute because you got to figure, like, when you hallucinate, there's a part of you that it's like when you dream, there's things there that you want to happen, and then there's it mixes with things that have happened.
Right.
So you can think like part of what he hallucinated was things that have happened with her, but also connected with things that he wished could have happened. He, as much as he's excited to, get out of France and try and get home, he really wishes that she was still with them.
God, yeah. And so then,
so he has his run-ins with a couple of hallucinations.
Ghosts.
But meanwhile, in the hallway right next door, Carol's having some moments.
It is so great. I love this scene.
I have had my issues with the use of Sophia as a plot point thing this season. But I like that they did sort of wrap up the idea of, she sees Sophia as she was, as a girl, as a non-zombie entity.
And she gets to hug her.
She does, and it's really sweet. It was a cute little moment. But then she is like attacked by a ghoul, and she's fighting it, and then realizes that the ghoul is her.
Yes.
And we've never seen anything like that before. Like, we've had lots and lots of moments where we've had, major characters that have turned, and you get to see them have their, ghoul moment, their zombie moment. But, Carol is able, Melissa McBride got to do this without actually dying. So she got to have like an idea of what her zombie would look like without needing her character to die. And I thought that her wrestling with her own sort of ghoul self was a really cool visual. There were some moments, like I said, that disappointed me. There were some tropey things this episode, but that was something we hadn't seen before. And I really thought that it was the most realistic sort of manifestation of all of Carol's mental issues and the things that she struggles with on a day-to-day basis, that ultimately she's really fighting herself in a lot of ways. So it was, I just thought it was a really, really, really great visualization of all of the struggles that Carol goes through as a person, as a character. So I thought it was really well done.
I saw it as it was like pre-apocalypse Carol fighting with post-apocalypse Carol. Like
interesting.
Before zombies, Carol is Carol, and then the ghoul version of Carol is sort of like, well, this is what you've become since all this hilarity has begun. Look how far you've come. That kind of thing. I have to ask, because this thought ran through my cold dead heart, is, did you kind of expect or think that when she's like hugging the non-ghoul Sophia, that we were going to cut back to like the really real world and she's like hugging a ghoul that, like, for whatever reason can't bite her, or she's holding her so tight against her she can't chew her? You know what I mean? Like, were you not like waiting for like that, like, oh my god, what am I doing?
I thought that there were going to be elements of things that were reality versus what she's hallucinating, and there'd be some more like jump scare moments out of that, but it didn't materialize the way, like, as those scenes sort of start to go, you're like, what direction could this go in? And that's definitely one that crossed my mind for sure.
Yeah. I mean, not again, there's no chance in the world she's going to get bit, but I just kept waiting for her to, like, have like Daryl show up and be like, Carol. And then she like snaps out of it a bit and realizes she's like holding like a ghoul that like has his bottom jaw ripped off or something, so it can't bite you. You know what I mean? Like, it's like a Michonne ghoul kind of, or something that like is like it's like going but it can't really do anything, But in the little featurette, I thought it was really interesting that like back in like season 4, Melissa McBride said they were going to kill off Carol. And so Nicotero made the mask, the ghoul mask, back then. And so they went and got it out of the archive or something and used it for this episode. So that mold that they made of her face, that they were able to make that latex from, is like 8 years old, 7 years old. So that thought was kind of cool that they did that. So but yeah, so then Daryl shows up and he gives her a gas mask, and so now they're gonna not be tripping balls anymore. And she asked what happened to Cadron, and he said he ran off. And we kind of get now the actual Rolling Stones version of the song. Yeah, because they got their money's worth. And we get that sort of weird dissolve where they're working their way down the channel into the darkness and into season 3, and that's how the episode ends.
Yeah. And my only question I popped at the end there, which we've already sort of talking about, is I'm wondering if we'll see Cadron again.
Again, right? Will we have him come back? And I think both of us are hoping yes. So
no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, my final thought was, so next season is in England? What happened to Spain?
Yeah, it's so funny because I saw something online like earlier in the day before I watched the episode, and whether it was a review or something, and they weren't specific, but they were like, sets everything up for next season to be in Spain. And I was like, in the channel? Like, the channel goes to
England.
Goes to England. Like, I mean, did they take a left turn and we miss it? Or I don't know.
It's like Bugs Bunny.
So
they should have taken that left turn at Albuquerque.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so obviously they don't stay in England for very long. I saw, they showed some images at the end of the episode of some stuff that they've already filmed, and they made a point of showing a sailboat, and I'm like, you're gonna sail from England to Spain? I'm like,
you can do that.
Okay, sure. Why don't they just sail to America. I mean, that's possible, right? In a small sailboat.
You could do it. Yeah.
So
as long as the weather isn't terrible, it's as long as you bring enough food and water, a little like a 15-20 foot sailboat could do it. It wouldn't be easy, but you could do it. Now again, I mean, how much sailing did Carol really get from Oceanside? I mean, is she like that much of a master sailor? I mean, we know Daryl's never had his ass in a boat ever, so he is going to be useless. But what does she know how to navigate? Does she know how to use a sextant and use the sun and figure out where I mean, I don't know. I mean, these are good navigational questions that it's not impossible, but it would be really, really tough.
Yeah. I have another question too, not just if we'll see Kadron again, but do you think when this series is said and done, and it resolves, and clearly like Daryl and Carol have to make it back to the mainland at some point, one would think, right?
Do they though?
Let's hope that they do. But do you think we will see Laurent or Ash again, or both of them? What do you think?
Yeah, I do. And I am not. And there was a bit, I think, when they were before the campfire scene where Carol is talking and she's like, they're probably back by now, and Judith is probably showing him how to use a katana and all this kind of stuff. And I kind of had this thought of like, are you sure? Would it not be beyond these kind of shows to be like, oh yeah, they got to England and then they had to land because the plane died, and so we might see them next season. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's I think entirely possible, right? I mean,
yeah, I do think it's possible. The one thing I think would be an interesting thing to at least, touch on is they haven't had any communication with the Commonwealth. So, Commonwealth's, I guess mayor, governor, or whatever. Ezekiel, do you think Ezekiel would be nervous to see a plane arrive in their midst?
And
what do you say when you show up? Carol sent me.
Yeah,
Carol and Daryl sent me. We flew from France. And they'd be like, okay, we're going to need you to sit inside this cell for a little while you tell us your story.
We're going to have to put you in this train car for a little while. And also keep in mind that the Commonwealth is in Ohio. And Ash has enough fuel to go to Maine. So
I mean, is he expecting to maybe land in Maine, where he knows he is, and then maybe refuel?
But his place got destroyed.
I guess so, yeah.
So I mean, there are definitely some rather large holes in the story that we've been told here. So and again, it would not surprise me in the least if some point in next season Ash and Laurent show up and they're like, yeah, the plane didn't make it, Yeah. And they're just there. I mean, again, I kind of got the sense though that the Laurent story is over. And so I think that, again, with the exception of Kadron, none of the people they met in France are still involved in the story at all. And so I think they're going to keep it that way, and they're going to use this of like, hey, you know what? We could like run this show for as long as we can get these two people to agree to be on it, and every couple of years we can go to a different country and keep it fresh and reinvent it and have whole new stuff to have them run into, rather than having the whole arc of the show is the Laurent arc. I don't see it that way. I think it's going to be much more. Nope, that was the French part. That was 2 seasons. Now we're going to do the English/Spain part, and will that be 2 seasons? I don't know. Maybe 1. We'll have to see. But yeah, my gut feeling is that if we ever see them again, it'll be like in the season, the series finale, where yes, Daryl and Carol finally get back to the Commonwealth, and of course, everybody is there waiting for them. So
yeah, kind of like how the end of the Ones Who Live was. We got like a nice little 5-minute epilogue there. I think that possibility exists, that you'll see, you know, Laurent be like, oh, it's, you know, me and Judith are here to say hello and whatever. Like,
can you imagine when they do that? Judith will be like 30. I mean, you know, Kaylee Fleming will be like, she'll have kids of her own by that point. I mean, the girl's already like 22 or something. I mean, she's super old compared to what she was when she first appeared on the show, right? So.
Yeah, no kidding. But yeah, I will say this. I'm hopeful that we'll see them again. That they will be included in some kind of epilogue. You know.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
That'd be great.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. Anything else that you wanted to make sure that we touched on? I'm taking a look through my notes to make sure we hit everything I wanted to do.
Let's see. No, I don't think so. I mean, again, like I said, you know, the tone of the two halves of this episode are so different.
Yeah, they really were.
I mean, the first half is very action, very much in your face, and the second part is much more suspenseful, right? They're in the cave, they have the flashlights, you can't see all that. I mean, it was totally different, and it's just interesting that it's written by the same people and it's directed by the same person, yet they are two very different, almost like it's like two separate stories that they just kind of smushed together to make one full story, right? You know,
right.
But that's not how it was. I mean, that was all written as one solid thing. So very interesting season finale, where clearly it's not done, but we really don't know what's coming up ahead. There's no indication of, you know, where they're going to end up or what they're going to do. It's just they're still going. So we'll have to see. So what about you? Did you touch everything?
I think so. Yeah. I took a peek through and we hit upon everything I wanted to chat about. So hooray!
Cool. Yay!
All right. So that's great. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll discuss some of our listener feedback and what we're expecting to come up next on the podcast.
All right, everybody. So please stick around. We shall be right back.
The following is an emergency action message. Civil authorities have identified a biological threat that they deem credible. This threat could potentially affect the entire continental United States.
The dead are returning to life and attacking the living.
911, what's your emergency?
There's a man on bed and he's attacking another man. Looks like he's biting him, like on the arm.
The initial signs are puzzling, unclear.
Getting pulled out of their cars and thrown to the ground. It looks like the bus passengers are biting their victims.
Soon, however, the reality is clear and undeniable.
The crisis involving the recently dead continues. Parliament today passed a law that requires all bodies of the recently deceased to be registered and turned
Toxic
over.
Bag Productions has captured the sounds of the zombie apocalypse and brought them to your gaming table. Background ambiences, zombie attacks, and radio transmissions that set the scene for your modern zombie adventure. Download MP3s from drivethrurpg.com or toxicbag.com.
Hi, this is Tom Savini, and you're listening to the Aim for the Head podcast with Diana and Steve. And don't forget to always aim for the head, because body shots just don't work.
Hey everybody, we are back. We're going to go ahead and jump right into our listener feedback. And away we go. So first off, we did get some feedback from our pal Andy from Germany. Hey Andy. And Andy sent in some feedback. Andy. Bonjour, Andy. He sent in some feedback for episode 5, so the previous episode. And so just so you know. And he writes in via the email and he says, bonjour, Diana and Steve. Bonjour, Andy. And he says, I'm really starting to like Kadron. Wait till you watch this episode. He is like a cockroach. What? Oh, okay. Yeah. I get it. I thought 2 times already that he is done for, but he simply shows up again. More grumpy and with less body parts, but yet alive.
But yet still alive.
That would have been so cool if he would have killed Janae with a corkscrew. That would have been a highlight. Yes, it would.
Have been.
So The only highlight was the scene at the car. So funny. With the explosions outside. I was like, the scene at the car. So funny. I have to reconsider that the serum is useless. If super walkers attack normal walkers, it's super useful. He makes a fair point. One can wipe out a herd by simply shooting a few arrows in the middle. A super walker on a leash could protect your community from walkers. Finally, the eggheads came up with something useful. Hooray! It seems a bit convenient, though, that super walkers are super aggressive but don't attack each other. Well, we're not sure because we didn't see what happened fully. We know that they killed all of the regular walkers, but maybe it's kind of like like the raptors in Jurassic Park. Kill all of them except yourself, and you're the leader of the pack. But I agree. We don't have any evidence either way, Andy, to say what happened there.
Yeah, and again, just point out too that the whole like the super ghouls attack the other ghouls. That was not the plan for Genet. That was sort of like a weird unintended side effect, right? They wanted to make a more aggressive walker that they could use as almost like as a soldier, right? Mm-hmm. So the whole thing of like, they get charged up and they just basically go berserk and attack everything. I don't think that was the idea that they were shooting for, right? It's sort of like this is what they came up with. And if they had lived long enough, they were going to try and tweak it a little to maybe tone it down a bit. But whatever. Right. You're right. You're absolutely right. We don't have enough data to know for sure would a super walker attack another super walker, or would they treat another super walker like walkers treat other walkers, which is to ignore them. We don't know.
Yeah. Not enough information yet, but it's an interesting outlook on that. I agree. Why wouldn't they attack each other? So moving on, he continues to say the fight of Daryl versus Losang was no highlight. It made me think about his fight versus Beta. Man, get that out 10 times fast. It made me think about his fight versus Beta and how lame this is in comparison. I wish they would take Kadron with them in the plane. It's, of course, bullshit that the Beechcraft can't take off with 4 people. One can see on the screen that the plane has 2 pilot seats and 2 passenger seats. Greetings from Germany, Andy. P.S. Your comparison of Genet and Ginny was spot on. Well, thank you.
I've been saying that for weeks.
Continues and says, but the difference is that Ginny followed her father as leader. She ruled due to his reputation, not due to fear. Therefore, it makes sense she was daddy's girl and stomped her feet if she didn't get her will. He's not wrong. And then a little personal note, he writes, PPS, I wish you luck for your elections. Amen, brother. That everything will work out for democracy and he air quotes, you Americans at least don't fall for fascists. Cross your fingers. I must say from safe distance, U.S. elections are really entertaining. We are happy to amuse. You can't imagine how boring elections are in Germany. We got to vote next year, and I can tell now already we will get a big coalition between CDU and SPD with Merz as new chancellor. Not that it makes much difference if not. I have no idea what the sentence is that I just read, but I'm sure it means something to people in Germany and also probably people in the EU that understand it.
Yeah, there are different parties in Germany that will form a coalition so that their candidate will become the chancellor or whatever they call the person that's in that has that president type office. So yes, you're right. It's like Democrats and Republicans, although different in that the European nations tend to have a whole bunch of parties, whereas here in the good old USA we just said no, we just need 2. We're totally just cool with 2. Yeah,
2. We're good.
As far as your Beechcraft question or issue, I should say, the only thing I would, again, I hate to defend the writers. They're grown ass people and can do it themselves. But I think the conceit there is that the Beechcraft is filled up with cans of fuel.
Yeah.
So that they can make this long trip. Remember, Andy, you had a big thing about, the Beechcraft doesn't have the range to go from Maine to to France, they would have to stop and refuel, which is what they did. But there's no gas stations anymore, so they had to bring their own gas with them. So literally, the plane has already got so much extra weight from all this fuel it's carrying that they couldn't. Ash's point is, you now want to, and when he left, the idea was that they were possibly going to come back with like a 19-year-old girl, 17-year-old girl. I mean, depending on the age there, which, you have to make assumptions, but you have to assume that's 120, 130 pounds probably. And instead we get Daryl, who is pushing 200 pounds, and Laurent, which is probably 100 at least, maybe 90, 100 pounds. That's 300 extra pounds. That's a lot. And that's why he said, with all this fuel and this extra weight, we'll never be able to take off. That's the only argument I could make about that.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. So when he made that call, I was like, well, you gotta allow for, the big cans of gas. But it still is. Feedback. They should say that out loud, not just,
yes,
I can't fit 4 people and then show 4 seats. So if you're gonna, go against that logic of, well, it fits 4 people, then you have to, say, well, we're also carrying all this other ballast.
Right.
So,
sorry. It's like an extra line of dialogue that would have cleared this all up, but for whatever reason, they just had Ash be all pissy and be like, well, the plane will never take off with all 4 of us. And I agree. When he first said it, I'm like, really? Then why are all those seats in there? It's like, come on. So.
Yeah. Will it take off if you pull out the weight of the seat and I sit on the floor? Is that okay?
Right. Can I sit on the wing? I mean, come on.
Little creep show action. Yeah. Well, thanks for writing in, Andy. We look forward to hearing what you think of the finale. That'll be interesting.
Yes.
And all of the Cadron-ness in the finale.
That's right. Cadron, Michelle, the Glow Ghouls, all that stuff. Lots of fun. I look forward to hearing what he had to say. So that's going to be cool.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. So moving on now, we're on to episode 6, which we just covered. And our first piece of feedback comes from, again, our fan in England, Bev, too. Hello, Bev. Yeah. It's always great to hear from you. And she sent this via the email, and she said, "Hi, guys. I hope you had a nice week. Well, what do we think about this week's episode? There were some nice emotional bits in this episode, starting with Daryl and Laurent's chat at the beginning. However, I could have done without the little sing-along." Come on, we got to see Daryl get all misty. You never see that.
Yeah.
She goes on to say, "I'm sure none of us were surprised to see that Carol got out of the plane. Then another bad guy died. I didn't even bother to learn her name. I knew she wouldn't hang around that long." I think she's talking about Jacinta, right?
Yeah, exactly.
She goes, "Shame for the nightclub owner lady had to die. It seems we needed a clean sweep of the French cast before season 3. Right, that's what I've been saying. It's like, France is over, people. We are done with France. So, yeah. The only French that might carry over, at least we are, knocking on wood, is Cadron, because everybody else is either dead or conveniently in France with a new girlfriend. That's it.
Yes.
She goes, "So many people died in this episode that my husband thought that there wasn't going to be another season."
It's a valid point, man.
It is true. Valid. It wasn't just people. It was like named people, right? Where they're like, "Oh, they're dead, they're dead, they're dead, they're dead." Yeah. Oh, yeah. She goes, he also kept talking. Yeah, I know. He goes, she says, he also kept talking about boats throughout the episode and how easy it would be to read up about sailing and just get in a boat, go back home, or sail to England. He also pointed out that there would be more than one plane left in the world, so they could have gotten a bigger plane. Could they, though? I don't know. I have a real hard time, even with the boats, of like, you're going to get in something that's literally been sitting abandoned for 12 years and trust that it's going to make it across the Atlantic. And it's like, I don't know. What do you think about that, Diana?
I don't know. I mean, here's the thing. I think the reason why what plane he has works is because it's able to be a solitary thing. You know what I mean? Like he fixed it himself. He did all of those things, and it fits one person nicely. And also the amount of fuel, like he's making his own biofuel for it. So the amount of fuel he needs for it is much smaller in comparison. I'm sure that there are plenty of planes out there that could be rehabbed and whatever. But first of all, who's going to fly them? Because a big commercial plane is very different. There's a lot of similarities to a small Beechcraft like that, but it's very different, like just the mechanics of it. And I think I just have this image. When I think of planes, I think of two very similar scenes. I think of War of the Worlds with Tom Cruise when that plane crashed. Like while they were spending the night in the neighborhood, and it's just basically like because the aliens attacked the plane or whatever. But I also think of Station 11 when clearly the outbreak hit the people who are flying the plane, and the plane just like crashed into Lake Michigan. So like I feel like the zombie apocalypse happened, and people die on planes. It happens. Someone has a heart attack, someone whatever, or maybe someone got a bite or something before I'm just saying the world fell really fast. And when that happens, I just have this image of all the planes that are in the air. I bet a lot of them crashed.
Because I agree. And
you know, and if they didn't, they ran out of safe places to land is the other thing too.
Yeah.
I just think about the mechanics of, do you remember on 9/11, if you've seen, like they do like progressive, like I've seen maps where they show, when the first plane hit the Trade Center, how many planes were in the air at the time. And then the progression of time to show all of the ones that landed, and then all the ones that were like, you have to land. You can't, like when they did the ground stop and everything needed to land no matter where you were, and then just slowly, and then there's no dots in the sky. I think that may have happened too, a version of that. But then it's like you lose like, 3/4 of the population right off the bat. A lot of those people were pilots. Like, you got to figure who's going to fly them. And I'm just thinking the major thing is the amount of fuel that you need for those bigger planes. Anything larger than a small private plane like that needs so much fuel, and they need a specific kind of fuel. It's not like you can just go down to the gas station. Jet fuel's different.
I think though when they say a bigger plane, I think they're talking about like a twin engine Beechcraft, or just a private plane just a bigger plane that could handle a couple more folks. But you're absolutely right though. I agree. I mean, it's also just, it's 12 years after the apocalypse. Any planes that are like left in hangars are going to be pieces of junk. Like, they're going to be rusted, and you know what I mean? It's just like to expect them to just be like able to fly. No, I mean, Ash's plane works because Ash has been taking care of it every day. He's been diligently servicing it and maintenance and doing all of the things you need to do, rubbing it with a diaper and whispering little sweet nothings to it to make sure it'll fly. I mean, that's why that plane works. It's just, you're right. You could go to like some little private airport and there's probably old planes there, but I wouldn't trust any of them to be able to fly. You'd have to totally take it apart and rebuild. I mean, it's just no. But again, she is right though. Technically, if their little plane couldn't make it, I suppose they could have looked for another one. It just would have added like 10 more episodes of the show, and they clearly didn't want to do that. So,
they did that.
So anyway, so she continues on saying, "So we're on our way to England. I'm not sure why they didn't pick up the gas mask straight away. Me too." It's not that they didn't know about the bat crap. However, it made for some really great bits with Carol seeing herself as a ghoul and her emotional letting go of her guilt about Sophia. She got a hug. She did. I imagine it was Scott Wilson when she got that hug, because he was a hugger.
Oh, he was a hugger.
was a hugger. Unfortunately, Daryl's vision of Isabel gave me Star Wars vibes. So it made me chuckle rather than cry. Surprised that they're on their way to England. I was a bit offended that they're not filming here, but then I remembered that all it does here is rain. All in all, this wasn't a bad season. It just felt more rushed than the first, and I think that was due to the rate that we churned through the bad guys. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts, Bev, in cloudy but dry Devon. And yeah, you're right. They did. It seemed like every episode there was like another big villain, took the lead. Like the current villain died, and then the next one stepped up and said, "I'm next." So yeah.
Another one bites the dust.
Yeah. I mean, it was.
Yeah. Exactly.
It was almost like they were sitting in line. They had like the numbers, and like it'd be like now leading number 6, and then Lo Sang said, "Oh, that's me," and off you went.
Yeah, so, my turn. Yeah.
Anyway, thank you so much, Bev. I love to read. Always love to read your feedback. It's always really fun and insightful. So thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Bev. Love to hear from you. Next up, we got some feedback via the Facebooks from Karen, not related to Lauren Cohen. And she wrote and says, I made it on time today.
Yay!
It's fine. You can send it in late. It's fine. It's fine. So Karen writes in, wow, he just tossed a grenade in the air like it was an apple. I guess so. So everyone knows where the plane is now. I can't stand the latest now dead bad guy. I can't stand the latest now dead bad guy.
Yeah. Which is Jacinta.
Oh, yeah. She said
like
bad guy.
Like, I can't stand her.
Yeah, got it. I'm surprised people still care about that ceremony for Laurent. Correct. Like she's bit and still wants that boy. Of all the kids, Carol mentions Lizzie. Who cared about her? I didn't even see Carol get out of the plane. I didn't either. Please tell me everyone thought about Ace Ventura when they started talking about the guano. That should age me. Why didn't they grab the masks the first time around? That's a popular thing. Oh my God. Wow.
The feedback.
That's how you drop a bunch of dead weight to get Carol and Daryl by themselves. I don't know what I think of this show moving forward. Like, how did Ash know where to go? Whatever. Is this the last we see of Laurent? I'll be around for the next spin-off series. Until then, cheers.
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 Great.
Thanks for writing in, Karen. As you can tell when you listen, obviously, that we agree with a lot of those things. I didn't clock the Ace Ventura reference, but that's fine.
Oh yeah, he talks about bat guano in the movie. It's a rather amusing little moment. Although now that I think about it, don't you think it would have been more devastating to Carol wasn't Lizzie's death, but the other girl that Lizzie kills?
Mika's.
Yeah. Is that Mika? Yeah, I couldn't remember for sure what her name was.
Yeah, Mika was in her. Yeah, Mika was in her care, and Lizzie killed her, and they didn't take the warning signs from Lizzie seriously.
Yeah, and Mika was much more of a normal non-psycho kid than Lizzie was. So,
correct. Right.
So yeah. Anyway, but you're definitely right, Karen. That like I said, I thought it was cool that they even referred to her at all. But it was weird that of all the kids. But again, there was a Henry reference too. Don't forget that, because she said Lizzie and Henry, so we got both of them. But anyway, thank you so much for writing in. Love to read your feedback. All right, so moving on, our next piece of feedback came from our pal Teresa Harper. Hello, Teresa. How are you? And she sent this via the Facebook, and she was very, very, very to the point and blunt. She goes, I loved it. I love that it's the same but different from the main The Walking Dead show. Daryl and Carol can do no wrong in my eyes. LOL. Then she finishes by saying, love you guys, and thank you for an amazing podcast.
Oh, that's so sweet.
I'm going to get misty. I'm going to get all Daryl here.
Aw.
See, we can get what we want.
Yeah, because if you try, you get what you need. Teresa, you're welcome, and I'm so glad that you enjoyed the season. I knew that folks that are big fans of Daryl and Carol would really, really enjoy this season. And they did have a lot of really great scenes together. You know, their relationship isn't the thing that like is my favorite part of the Walking Dead universe. So for me, it's like it's, I don't want to say it goes over my head, but it's not something that's meant for me. But for folks that really love them and really love their relationship, I can only imagine that this was such a great season for you. So I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's so cool. And if we were able to make it even a little bit more enjoyable, oh, that's cool too.
Isn't that sweet of us? Yeah. So thanks for writing in, Teresa. We always love hearing from you. So don't stop writing in. We love your positivity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. So coming up on the podcast, there's no new episode next week. Whatever.
Whatevs.
I know. Now that we are in November and I say the holidays are around the corner and people are probably like, Diana, it's only like 4 days into November. Yeah, but you're going to like blink your eyes and it's going to be the holidays again. So
yeah, it's coming.
We are planning over the next few weeks. We're going to record a bunch of episodes. We got a bunch of movies that we're looking at to cover. And when the time is right, we're going to put out some social media stuff, get some feedback, get your thoughts on some stuff. But we're looking to record some episodes talking about a couple of different recent movies, and I'll release those through the holidays so that you guys have some stuff to listen to while you're on your way to families' houses and stuff like that. And probably pick up doing some more of the same in January as well, and planning out 2025. So yeah. Right. and we've got a few that we've already picked. We're just deciding sort of what order we want to do stuff in. So once we make that decision, we will, like I said, we'll put out some social media and get some feedback from you guys too. And again, if there's something recent, there's a couple of new series I know too that people have watched. If there's a short series, 6 to 10 episodes of something that you caught that you think is great, throw us a suggestion in the suggestion box. Send us an email, throw something on social media for us. Or if there's a movie that you haven't seen us give our 2 cents on, recent or something even a few years older, it doesn't matter to us. We'll watch anything.
Again, yeah. If you want us to review The Bride of Frankenstein or something, let us know. Yeah. We'll certainly. We're looking for suggestions. Obviously, if there's something that you feel passionate about that you want to hear us put our 2 cents in, like you just said, Diana, let us know.
Yeah, especially, keep an eye on for is there a movie out there that you've always wanted to have like a companion podcast to listen to? Is there something that's a really, really big favorite of yours that you've never seen someone else cover? Let us know about it. We'll cover it. We'll do it for you. And that way you've got something to listen to along with that movie. Absolutely.
There you go.
And it's a sort of a final ditch effort. By the time you're listening to this for late tonight or first thing tomorrow morning, it'll be Election Day here in the U.S. And we just want to encourage people to have a voting plan here in the U.S. And make sure you are getting to the polls. Make sure your neighbors, make sure your family, your friends, anyone in your community that might need a ride, give them a ride. They could use it. Remember, polls open. States are a little different from state to state. In Illinois, they open at 6 a.m. And they close at 7. And remember, if you are in line before the polls close, then they have to take you. So as long as you're in line before, they have to let you vote. So keep that in mind. But make a plan and get yourself to those polls and make a vote. Make a vote.
Make a vote. That's right.
Make it happen.
You have no reason to complain.
That is true. America's a democracy, and you're allowed your voice. But if you're not engaged in there, then I guess that's that. So, yeah. But I'm personally planning on voting tomorrow. I'm going after work. I live in a very, very small community, so I'm not expecting there to be long lines. There never really has been. I think the longest I've ever waited in the past and I think it was 2020's election. I think the longest I've waited was probably about half an hour to vote. It's mostly because it's a small community and there's lots of seniors, and they fill their ballots out slow.
They do, and they all tend to vote on election day.
Yeah, there's a tendency there. So yeah,
because it's just tradition. That's just what they did, their whole lives. So that's what they do.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so that's my plan. I'm going tomorrow, and I'm excited.
I voted last Wednesday for early voting, and I only had to wait about 5 minutes, which was rare. You normally at the place where I early vote, it is just every time I've just walked in and done it. And this time, like there wasn't a line, but all of the machines were in use when I got there. So I had to wait a couple minutes for somebody to finish up and let me in, which was amazing. I've driving around the city, I have seen huge lines out the door of polling places for early voting. So I think that's going to be a lot of people voting, a lot of turnout, which is good because there's some important things we have to decide here.
Yeah.
And so I think everybody get out and vote. And like I said, if you don't vote, then you can't complain about what happened. So.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's going to do it for us this week. We covered everything we needed to cover, and so that wraps it up.
The only thing I would just add one thing, and that is we will be making a public appearance at the Days of the Dead show in Chicago here at the end of November. It's like I think the 22nd through the 25th. Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So check that out if you're going to be in the area. It's an amazing show. The horror community is super nice and friendly, and some great guests and some great vendors and some place to do some holiday shopping if you're so inclined. You can find out all the details at daysofthedead.com, and then just click on Chicago because they have shows all over the country. And but anyway, we will be attending that one. So if you're in the area, come on by. We'll be the two folks there wearing the horror movie T-shirts. You can't miss us.
Yeah. We'll be easy to spot. So that's going to wrap it up for us this week, guys. We're looking forward to chatting with you again soon. But until then, as always, I'm Diana.
And I'm La Steve. Bonjour.
Don't forget to always aim for the head.
Because body shots, they just don't work.
To send us an email, write us at aimfortheheadpodcast@gmail.com. And our Twitter handle is @AFTHpodcast. Pictures and video are always welcome at our Instagram account, Aim for the Head Podcast, all one word. But the best way to keep in touch with us is to just like our Facebook page to get all of our updates in your feed.
Think that you're actually not excited?
Well, maybe I'm slightly excited.
I don't know.
Maybe I'm faking it. Wouldn't be the first time.